All right, so I'm about to share a little gem with you guys that I've been using in Ableton. It's an effects rack that emulates the classic warmth and saturation of tape saturation. Let me show you a quick demo of the effects rack, and then I'll go into the steps I took to make this.
Yo.
So as you hear, this effects rack can go from small amounts of saturation to extreme amounts of saturation, distortion, and added harmonics. So how did we get to this point? What were the steps we took? Let's start with step one, building the foundation. So that can be using EQs or compressors to have a nice foundation to work with. You don't want to just throw this on right before the session, right before you make the beat. You could to get into the mood or get the vibes, but if you're like mixing a beat and you're at the last steps, that's when I would add this on. But yeah, build the foundation by adding EQs, cleaning up the mix, and adding some compression to have a nice consistent sound. So as you can see, I did that by adding a glue compressor on my master channel, and this is just to like glue everything together pretty much. But as you can see, we're not even done with the mix and it's already sounding pretty decent. So moving on to step two, we have adding the tape saturation. So on here, we have a total of 3 saturators, well, 1 dynamic tube, which is tube saturation, and then 2 regular saturators. This knob is mapped directly to the dynamic tube's dry wet, and this dynamic tube has quite a bit of drive increased, as well as the option C selected, which just adds extra harmonics and lowers the quality of the sound. We also increased the envelope to 188% and played around with the bias. I don't know if that's how you pronounce that, but that's what it looks like, so that's what I'm gonna call it. Moving on to the other 2 saturators, we have this regular saturator with a soft sine as a waveform, and we increased the drive quite a bit, lowered the output to compensate, activated soft clipping, and this second knob is mapped directly to the dry wet. So these saturators, as you can see, this one as well, all 3 of them are hitting pretty hard, but the key is to play around with the dry wet. So that's how we got that. And before we move on to step 3, if you're interested in downloading this effects rack, make sure to check out my Patreon that I just started. You'll have access to not just this rack, but you'll also have the opportunity to have access to exclusive content like in-depth beat tutorials and piano lessons. So if that's something that you're interested in, or if you just want to support me, go ahead and check out the link in the description. But back to the video. So after getting the saturators, you could mess up the mix a little bit. It could make it a little muffled. So for step 3, I decided to do a little bit of fine tuning and add some clarity by adding OTT. OTT is a multi-band dynamics preset here on Ableton. So if you go down to multi-band dynamics, just select OTT, drop it on, and this is how the preset will look. I didn't manipulate none of these knobs. Only thing that's mapped out is the amount, which is mapped out to this knob. And basically, the more amount you have, the more clarity it is. So for example, check this out. So as you can see, if you play around with the amount of the OTT, you can really affect the clarity. I was actually too scared to put it to 100 because I felt like it would have been too crisp and it would have just ruined the quality of the track. So moving on to step number 4, that's going to be dialing in the character, which is of course the wow and flutter. So for the wow and flutter, we went ahead and used 2 chorus ensembles and we selected vibrato on both of them. And for the wow, we have the rate mapped out. So as you can see on the wow, for the rate, I only allowed a select range because I don't want the wow to be too fast. Same with the rate, I only allowed a select range, and this one is a little bit higher because flutter is faster than the wow effect. And for the depth, I tried to allow appropriate ranges only because I didn't want your mix to be jumping around. It's supposed to be subtle and, you know, pleasant to the ear and nothing too drastic, because you got to remember we're trying to emulate, you know, analog tape machine. We're trying to emulate the variations and the timing of the tape playing, which is what makes that warping sound, that wow wavy sound. I also applied an auto pan, but with this the amount isn't really too drastic. This is just to make it a little bit extra stereo and just kind of expand on the character a little bit and have just little inconsistencies in the volume going from the left to the right, but very subtly, almost to the point to where it's not even noticeable. But after that, that was the rack, and I feel like it was pretty much complete. Like I said, if you want to download this rack, you can check it out on my Patreon. All tiers will have access to this rack, but if you do decide to go a little further and support a little bit more, you'll be able to gain access to in-depth beat tutorials, piano lessons, the beats that I make on YouTube. You'll have access to those starting from this video, as well as I'll shout you out at the end of the video, which I'll start doing once I get my first Patreon. So yeah, if you want to do that, go ahead and sign up. But without further ado, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and please comment for your boy. But I'm gonna get out of here, man. Peace out.